Well, I'm going to get started if that's okay with you guys. So it was kind of weird because we didn't have a question and answer at the end of that keynote. So I guess before I start this presentation, I've got lots of fun audio and a couple games, some snacks, some NPR stickers. We'll get to it all. But first, do you guys have any questions or any comments or anything you want to talk about first? I know that's putting you right on the spot. Well, maybe in the middle we could do something similar, because I do feel like I want to see what you guys were thinking about when I did that keynote and kind of what you're hoping to get out of this time you have here. So it feels like just a one-way conversation that I'm having. And that's okay. Yeah, go ahead. And in anything like what? Like the concern of students or the answer to the problem? Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Great question. So the first thing I would say is one of the life kits that I kind of promoted a little bit, there is a whole one on repaying your student loans and like setting yourself up for success for that. Highly recommend. It's 25 minutes, super digestible. One of the exercises I'm going to show today is a way that you can create a Google spreadsheet to like kind of visualize what your monthly payments would be, how much principal and interest. It's super simple. I'll just show you an example, but you can make your own. And that I have found folks who are working directly with students say that that has been super helpful. If they can start to kind of visualize the plot, $5,000 means nothing if you're not thinking about kind of like, okay, well, what will this mean for a monthly payment? How will this balloon over time if I can't pay it back? Especially folks, I mean, I don't know if this is something that people talk about, but going to grad school, you're kind of in that, like, well, I'm not paying them back, so they're on hold. Some of them aren't on hold, so that there's kind of like that conversation about, like, what is this going to grow to by the time I'm able to pay it back? So hopefully those two things are helpful. I think also just talking about it, especially because folks are renewing their FAFSA every year, so they have an opportunity to make some choices at that point. I mean, if they've already taken out the loan, you're dealing with what's in front of you, but I think there's definitely some discussion to have in terms of like what's next. And yeah, tucked away doesn't look as good. Okay, got it. Anything else you guys are thinking about? Anything else that you're hoping to get out of kind of this day? Or nope. Okay, we'll jump in. So you guys know about me, so I don't really have to tell you about that again. That's me. One thing I did want to show you before we get into kind of the numbers is this is my gear. So I just wanted to kind of show you that, so this is normally what I'll be looking like if you encounter me on a job. It takes about 10 minutes or so, and then people forget about this. Kids love to pet it. It's kind of like a cat, I guess. I'm always thinking about sound and how sound tells stories. Voices are fantastic. Emotion is fantastic. I think that's what connects us to each other. But also scenes and things you can really like hear and attach to. So I'm really into like exercises, games, interactions. I think that's kind of what makes a great classroom. And so that's what makes also great radio. So that's some of the things that we'll talk about today. So just wanted to give you a little preview. The other thing, like I said this in the keynote, and I really, really believe it, that you guys know probably more about this stuff perhaps than I do. Really, you guys are like talking to students and you're on the ground, and that is awesome. And so this is not my expertise in the sense that I'm not an expert on financial literacy or financial aid. I'm a journalist, I'm a reporter. So my job is talking to people and kind of synthesizing that information. So that's another reason I kind of brought this gear, because if you think you have a really good story or a student or something that you want to talk about, we can do that. So So this is kind of one of the numbers that fascinated me about kind of who goes to college, is this fact that more than half are paying for college independently from their families. So they're not dependents. And tuition is just the beginning. So we're talking about a lot of other stuff when we're talking about financial troubles in college. The other stat that's not up there is 55% are borrowing loans, or borrowing money. They're taking out loans. So a large portion of the population that's going to college. So as I mentioned, this is a really, really great resource, this Life Kit, Paying for College. So there's 3 episodes. The first one is all about kind of like what different kinds of loans they have. Not sure how that happened. So it talks a lot about Parent Plus loans. I've been hearing kind of horror stories from students about Parent Plus. A lot of colleges package these into the financial aid package, but there's no limits. They are for their parents, and it's just, I believe, a simple credit check to get them. That's kind of it. So they can be really scary, and they can do a lot of damage, and they tend to be common when you look at who is defaulting. Folks often have Parent Plus loans. So anyways, episode 1 will go into like, what is a Parent Plus loan? What is a federal loan? What are private loans, Pell Grants, all the different types of aid that you can get. It's not state specific, and often that's really important for students. So just have that kind of caveat that it won't have Florida specific things in it. Let's see. So this is the episode that's just my favorite because it's students talking to students. I played a little clip in the keynote. I'm going to play another clip now because I think it's an important thing to think about when we're thinking about kind of like the role of students in all of this and talking with students. So I'll play the clip and then we can talk about it because it's kind of about misperceptions and asking for help and how that can be kind of challenging. She go again. She likes to turn off. Give me a sec. For yourself and advocating for yourself and sharing that you're in need can be a challenge. Here's Lauren from Michigan.
You know, I think there's this assumption that poor folks are poor because they're not spending their money properly or they're spending frivolously, when the reality is that we don't have money, you know?
She says that makes it really hard to ask for help. And we heard the same thing from Avi Oyabel, a junior at Ohio State.
Being an independent student, I feel different than other students because they're not necessarily like worrying about all these sorts of things all the time.
During her sophomore year, she had a falling out with her family and took on paying for college herself. It was a hard transition. She had recently decided to pursue an architecture major, which meant she'd had to buy a ton of extra materials.
I had a very expensive assignment that I need to get done, and it just wasn't feasible for me at that moment. So I emailed my professor and talked with them, and they were very understanding.
The professors let her do the assignment digitally instead of printing it. And Avi was kind of shocked. First, that she had actually said something, and then second, that it had worked.
Honestly, I don't know how I got myself to do it, because I am a fairly, timid person. I don't necessarily like to speak up all that often.
But after the success of that first ask, she developed a personal pep talk.
All it takes is that 5 seconds of courage, even though you might not want to do it in the moment. If you think about it, really the worst that could happen is they say no, or they're going to direct you to the people that can help you.
This fearlessness, she says, should also be applied to the way you approach the financial aid office. She's found there are always additional opportunities for extra grant money, emergency funds, even scholarships that folks just don't know about. All you have to do, she says, is apply.
Even if they seem super competitive, you have a shot.
So I think that I heard that a lot with students that I talked with, is just this hesitancy to reach out and ask for help and to say, I don't know what I'm doing, especially if they don't have kind of a person that they know on campus. This is maybe a little bit where you can advise me on kind of what it's like at Valencia. Is that something that you see? Are you paired up specifically with students? Help me kind of understand the capacity in which you're working with college students. Yeah.
And the college has now assigned advisors to students, so we would be that person for students at X amount of credits and beyond these credits. So we would be that person specific. But we also have like a general advisor office where students can walk in and meet with an advisor as a walk-in basis during our normal operating hours.
Okay.
So
Informal programs, is that fair to say?
correct.
Go ahead.
And there's a big component of us in this room.
Yeah.
My name's Terry Carls, and we are, we're called New Student Experience, and we are a 3-credit class that probably 95% of every incoming student has to take. And in their first semester, we are both their faculty members and we are their first or second semester advisors. And part of our task is to make that connection with the student.
Yep.
So part of our course is traditional student success class, but it's also getting them to understand sort of the culture of the college, where to go, what services are available, who may be transitioning as their advisor. In some cases, we can make early connections. And that goes for all full-time faculty who teach NSE. Plus, we have a large component of part-time adjunct faculty who are also not only their faculty, but their faculty advisors. So we try to make that personal connection, hopefully their first or second semester.
And I think what research has found is that having folks trained up, even if they're not in a particularly specific role like that, to be able to kind of talk with students is also super helpful. So even if you're in this room and you're not part of this program, I think you can probably learn from each other in terms of with students. I heard it college students are because in high school the teacher is so accessible. And it's like this college thing that just adds this layer of scariness, which kind of brings me to this next. Actually, I'm going to skip ahead and go here first. I hear this all across the country. What the heck are office hours? This just seems so natural as a place in which we could talk with students and address their needs, and students are like, no way, Jose. Even successful students who have made it through and graduated say, actually, the one thing I didn't do that I really regret, office hours. So I guess my question, and this isn't just you, but in general, is what are we doing wrong here? And we, I mean the adults and professors. I wrote this story about how to make office hours less scary. Some of the examples I found were just changing the name, like office hours. What is that? That feels like a doctor's office or something. Student hours. This is a time in which you can just come and it's student need driven. That was a big change. Hosting office hours not in a classroom or in an office, but in a common space, near food. Students really seem to like that. And I think also just the lingo, we talked about that a little bit in the keynote of just demystifying this, even if it means putting a very colloquial definition on syllabus or in handouts and guides for students. This is just such a potential place where we could be having conversations about your loans or budgets or that type of thing. So I don't know if you guys have heard of any interesting things that folks are doing that you might want to share here, or anything that you've tried that was successful? Yeah, in the back.
When I went to a seminar recently, and he explained to me that they called all these computer science professors that were called now, and all of their office hours were common room like this, and they would come in, and what they noticed was they were coming in and they would ask for help with the computer programs, and then they would go, here, I'm sorry, helping you, but this person over there, they're further along. Maybe they can sit down and tell me how to do it. And then the next thing you knew, they were going to live together.
These are peers you're talking about, fellow students. Mm-hmm. Like facilitating it, yeah.
Facilitating these conversations, which help them create their, their team, their tribe, and all that.
Yeah.
It's really, we should go, all of us in here, we need to review out. We need to all look and see what they're doing, because it's called intangible learning.
I like that. Cool. Yeah, go ahead. Jump in.
Graphic design actually, I think every campus has a graphic hangout, so they
Okay.
made it a place that if you have extra food, you can put your food like in a bin if you're hungry. I think they do the same with clothes sometimes. And then they made it, they kind of like hooked you in early because they did these like extra sessions if you wanted to like, for that example, like if you want to learn how to do a comic strip, you would come there on a Tuesday. So then you saw what it was all about, and also the professors are always there to get help with your assignments while hanging with your friends. And then second, they created, like emails still are needed, and like need to be where the students are and they're on social media. So they created, and graphics is more like open. So they created like Facebook and stuff that they can meet all the students in like a friend zone.
Cool.
Not as much as like a scary professor.
That's awesome.
That's been really helpful.
Yeah, those are two really good examples. I think one of the challenges that I've heard across the country is that the folks who are most likely to come to stuff like that are oftentimes the folks who don't need as much help. So I guess the challenge is, of course, like getting students who wouldn't normally go to something like that to go. Yeah, go ahead. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Setting, you can go before school and your teacher already there doing
Mm-hmm.
that, so you know what to see them.
Yeah.
Unlike the college setting, your hour is just there. It's your own thing. So I remember the faculty, other students would come in and be like, oh, where's Professor so-and-so?
Yep.
Like, oh, this class already left. Oh, so he's not here?
Hmm.
But also, with the time on the items, where are they really supposed to go? And then it's also, does everyone know all that other stuff? So I know like some of them are in their social design suite, but they're also their head of those stuff. So that's not like anything stuff.
Yeah.
So things like that, like, we as advisors don't know where to direct students.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the fun thing about hearing these problems is like there are probably lots of people who have good ideas about this. Like, I don't know if you ever have any time where you get to do this, to just like chat amongst yourselves. Because that's kind of an easy fix if we just like looked at like space and time and availability of people, and we like could figure out maybe to have even just a corner or a section or a room that was designated the whole year maybe. So it's like similar, students can remember it. It doesn't have to change every semester or quarter. I love that. Any other problems/solutions you'd like to bring up? Yeah.
Well, my students never come to my office hours for anything happening in my class. So what I do is I offer to help them with their own classes.
Cool.
Like English or math, trash, like I know nothing. So they come in,
Yeah.
and then they start crying, and it's a whole thing, and I get their whole backstory
Yep.
as to why they're not doing well in my class, and then we can talk it out. So that's how I get them to come.
Yeah.
Oh, but you didn't understand your assignment? We'll bring it. We'll talk.
Yep.
I can maybe help you with medical terminology.
Yeah.
Bring it in. Maybe I can help you work through it. And we never get to medical terminology. And the real thing that's bothering them, that's affecting their grading, medical terminology.
Yeah, it comes up. Oh, I love that. And I think that also speaks to this kind of misunderstanding of what office hours are for. And I think especially with students, they think, oh, I have to ask a really smart question about the class.
I think, at least with the students, not a level of shame that they have
Yeah.
at not understanding how to do college.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know where you got that from. Nobody knows that. Okay?
Yeah.
Like, I didn't figure it out until first semester senior year. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm sure gonna figure it out. And then sometimes I'll tell them, I was like, listen, I'm 35 and I just figured out what I wanted to do. Maybe I can use my degrees.
Yeah.
I mean, I can tools and toolbox. Okay, it's fine. Tools and toolbox. But they have these ridiculous expectations
Yes.
of what they're supposed to know how to do their first semester in higher education.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of shame, like, well, I don't know, I don't want to ask a stupid question, and I wasn't sure, and my professor's not approachable. Well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
What does that mean? And it turns out it's something like that. With spacing, I went to the faculty resource office where there were 3 other professors in there, and I didn't feel comfortable talking about what my issues were in front of other people, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, which is probably why, I'll jump to you in just a second, it's probably why there's value in saying that first day of your class, right? Like, it doesn't even matter actually what you're teaching or what the meeting is supposed to be about, but kind of like demystifying this idea that everybody knows. I love that. You had your hand up back there.
I think one of the things, I have some success with that. So, common ask questions about the assignments or about class plan. And it comes down to whether it's teacher's or professor's authoritative versus professor's time.
Mm.
You know, one of the things I established in my first class is that this isn't my classroom, this is our classroom. I'm just kind of guiding you on this road, and you're the one walking it.
Yeah.
So, like, trip, know exactly where I am.
Yeah.
It's about them, not this is me, that's not.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
Earlier this summer, I had the opportunity to do this in professional development. We had Ryan Reedberry come and speak with us. And a big thing he mentioned was trying to have some flexibility within your office hours. We all have a life ourselves, but that student who has to work really can't make office hours from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. So if we have that opportunity, that flexible office hours, have those flexible office hours, that kind of inclusive in helping the students.
Yeah,
That's
I
an
love
idea
that.
to talk about.
Yeah, I love that. I think, there's a line, of course, between, your own sanity as an instructor and your time. But I have heard from professors, especially a lot of adjuncts actually, that prefer to do like a scheduled FaceTime, just to do it over the phone so that they physically don't have to be on campus if they live far away. And also then it can fit a little bit more easily into their working student schedules. So yeah, definitely the flexible stuff. Did I miss anybody's hand? Yeah, go ahead.
Part of it too is the fear of obviously a lot of students fear asking questions in class.
Mm-hmm.
But you would think that, okay, outside of the class, we don't feel comfortable asking a question because they're being judged by their peers. But I think a large part of it is also being judged by your professor.
They give you a grade.
Right.
Yeah, of course.
When I asked a question that was clearly covered in the discussion, the lecture,
They're going to know I wasn't listening or something.
Right, or maybe
Mm-hmm.
they think that I was doing something else or preoccupied or that I just don't know anything. And so I think that's part of the fear.
Yeah.
Of reason why they don't ask questions during class and then also in the office hours. Or even sometimes a lot of professors will try to stay 10, 15 minutes of the class if available. Even then I still experience students who
Don't want to come.
One of the things that we are doing as program advisors, because a lot of what we're hearing is that because we are appointment-based advisors, that we maybe aren't as accessible as students would like us to be. So this summer semester was our 3rd semester where we did a registration lab because we complete students who want to come in and want to actually register with us. So we would have like a room.
You register for classes.
Exactly.
Okay.
And meet with us, mingle with us. It's very, 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 very laid back. We'll have music playing and during snacks, and they get to kind of know us on a different level and then
Cool.
register for classes.
That's awesome. And registration is like, we know so much. that this is a point in which actually has like real repercussions for your success, like the classes you have, your schedule. That's great. I saw a hand in the back there. Do you want to jump in?
And it sounds funny, but language has a lot to do with the way that our students perceive it. And I think these guys at the high school actually, because when they're going off to college, they're doing very often. When you go to college, your professor doesn't care. That's the way that it's said. They don't care. You have to do your own thing. They're not going to talk with you. And I get the message that they're trying to give to the student that the responsibility is on you. But the professors at the college have a huge task now to break that image that was built. Because they don't see you as their friend. They see you as a person that doesn't care. That you're just there doing your job and when you're done, you're done. And if you think of office hours in high school, when do you go to the office? When you're in class. You don't go to the office for help. You ask right after class. So I think that a lot of it is really perception. So if as professors and maybe other advisors, when you see a student who work from the beginning, especially that first semester, on breaking that image and I'm saying we're here for you, it's really not a problem, that makes sense.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Good. Yeah. And that's a cultural thing. Yeah.
And then when they actually experience that, oh, they missed class, and then in their phone call, oh, that's true. So they come in with this like, oh, well, the professor really doesn't care, I'm just a number. And I know even from our students who are going from Valencia to the 4-year institution, that is something that is also continuously shared because it's like here, you may get a little bit more hand-holding, but once you get off to the 4-year institution, that's not necessarily going to be the case either. So now they're thinking, well, even when they get there, I still can't talk to the professor. I still can't talk to the academic advisor because of the fact that I'm just going to be considered a number. I'm going from a small institution, my high school, to a semi-big institution, to a huge institution. So I'm just a number. Nobody really cares. It's just me. I have to figure this out. So there's somewhere along the line, as my colleagues have already stated, that we need to kind of demystify that perception that they're given from when they're in high school to when they get here and change the narrative.
Yeah. But it can be really small. I mean, it can be a wording change, location change. I mean, I think sometimes in education it feels just like, oh my gosh, we got so much to do. But you can, like, teeny pieces, baby steps. You have your hand up, and then we'll go to you in the front.
It's really funny to me. We have to change it. I teach middle school, I have taught high school, I'm a science teacher for secondary, and every group says that about the group level. Middle school is complicated. When you get to high school, yes, they do. Yes, they do.
Yeah.
When I taught high school, like, when you get to college, they're not taking care of you. What's wrong with you? Yes, they do. You know, we have to change that narrative because it's not true.
Yeah. Go ahead, jump in.
No, it may not be true for people who are in this room. We have to be honest with our students. There are professors out there like that.
Yeah.
We have to be honest. I think we're both two spectrums. They're not going to care, and we do care. So we have to tell them, you're going to have professors like us that they're relatively want you to succeed, but there are also going to be other professors who aren't going to be as accessible.
Yep.
So just find that balance, and if they're not as accessible, who can you go right with?
Yeah. Well, and that's why that example that you gave earlier about helping with something that's not your class is so great. And if students know that that's a possibility, that helps break down some of that, you know, if this professor isn't all in. I think that the other thing that's fun is like all of the information you're learning here about financial literacy is also really good as kind of an icebreaker-esque. Like students want to know all this stuff, like money. Oh my gosh. So even if you just say like, I went to this thing this summer and I learned all this, that's also perhaps a door opening. It's not about your class. It's not about how you're doing. It's just like, I got a bunch of tools that I want to share with you. So I think this is such a cool opportunity to open those doors. So I'm getting 10 minutes, which is like cannot be true. There's so much other stuff we want to talk about. Okay, so let me see quickly what else we have. So I wanted to talk a little bit about loans, which we can do quickly. This is the sample spreadsheet. This is just made in Google spreadsheets. And it's basically like you would do it when your loan starts to accrue interest. So there's the date over here, your principal, the interest. This is I'm going to share like all my links and a sample of this doc so you could start to put in your own calculations into it. But it's very simple in terms of like the principal times the percent interest. And then that's the interest. Then amount paid is the student would input that. And you can do this in real life and play with it to see, okay, if I pay $500 this month, $1,000 this month, oh, I missed a payment. Like there's a way that you can you're going to see the numbers grow, which I think always, when I've been in classrooms where students are working on this, they are just like, whoa. Just within, you can see this is almost a year and 2 years later, and it's, from 5,000 to 13,000. I mean, this is not, they haven't continued to pay, but it also is a really good reminder that you want to keep paying that monthly bill. So this is really helpful. Let's see quickly, just a little bit about we're really bad at financial literacy as Americans, but then when you drill down as college students, and the lower you look on the socioeconomic ladder, the worse the results get on financial literacy tests, which is seems to be kind of a cyclical destiny, which shouldn't be. So I did want to talk briefly about kind of the national landscape, which is that colleges are clearly from this conference and from what I've seen starting to recognize this. Lots of workshops on campuses. They just last year opened the Center for Financial Literacy at North Central College, which is a really great resource. The guy who runs that, his name is Brian Decker. He's an economics professor there. As of now, they get no funding from the university, so he was kind of like, make sure you tell everyone that when you're touting my center. But they do really good work, and they've got lots of resources. He actually gave me a game, which I thought we were going to have time to play, and we may in like the last 7 minutes. One of the things that he said to me, he repeated this over and over again, and maybe I have a slide here. Yeah, money is super uncomfortable and can be uncomfortable to talk about, even as an adult. So you've got potentially 2 people in a conversation, a student and an adult advisor, who are both perhaps ill-equipped and super uncomfortable to talk about money. So we have a little bit to overcome there. And so he said that many of his sessions that he does with students, he will play a game. And honestly, it's not about what happens in the game. It's a distraction. It's something to help you feel a little bit more comfortable. So the example he gave is with Skittles and M&Ms and jelly beans about budgeting. The 2 biggest questions students have about money stuff: budget, student loans. How do I spend my money if I have money coming in? Many are working. What do I do with that? How do I monitor it? And then, of course, like, what should I be worried about with my loans? So in terms of the budgeting one, I'll pass out. I think we're still going to have time to play. So he does this. He does this game. So why don't we just play for a minute? I think we have some time. You can just do it in kind of your table groups. I'll pass out instructions. You're going to need 20 candies. Maybe send one representative up from your tables if you want.